Hello everyone, my name is Muir, and this is X-Force Foundation, specifically the new and improved medium weapons guide, specifically with boron weapons this time. Keep in mind that boron weapons can only be used on boron ships. Just a thing to keep in mind. But we're going to be drawing numbers from the X4 Ultimate Weapons Guide. This is made by Kajar. You know the drill by now. He is not paid to do any of this as far as I am aware. He does this because of his love for the community and because he just loves the idea of data mining and gathering all this stuff and testing it. But if you find his stuff to be useful, then consider leaving him a thumbs up, an award, or some sort of comments telling him how it was useful to you. But alright guys, let's go ahead and get into the numbers. So first up is going to be the Boron Ion Atomizer. The Ion Atomizer is the boron sort of, it's not really the phase gun that they have. Borons, they kind of have some, most of the weapons have a specific shtick that they do. In this case, the Boron Atomizer is the medium weapon equivalent to the Ion Gatling, which slows enemy ships down. This one also slows enemy ships down. So if you hit a small ship with the Ion Atomizer, you will actually slow their speed down by 10% for 6 seconds. Medium ships, it'll be 7% for 5 seconds, and then large and extra large, it'll be to slow them down by 1% for 3 seconds. Now, it is unlikely that you will stop a large ship from being able to move. It is unlikely that you will stop a medium ship from being able to move. But any speed reduction does mean that it's easier to hit them. So, if I remember correctly, the Hydra, their Corvette, has 4 weapons on it. So you would be able to completely stop a medium ship from hitting if all 4 of those had Ion Atomizers on there, and you were hitting with all of those. It might not be as likely to happen, but you could completely stop a small ship with these. Just like with 2 Ion Gatlings, you can bring a small ship to a complete halt on the small boron weapons. Medium ship, unlikely to completely stop something, but it's possible. But alright, let's get into the numbers. The Boron Ion Atomizer is an anti-shield weapon. Most boron weapons do fall under this category. Keep that in mind. So the Ion Atomizer does a bunch of shield damage. This one actually has an AoE effect when it gets to where it is programmed to think the enemy ship will be when it would intersect with the enemy ship, and when it gets there, it will explode, doing AoE damage. I believe the AoE also, in part, counts as a hit, which can slow them down. I don't know if you get a direct hit and the AoE hits them if you get to double dip, but I know the damage is doubled. You get the, it's not necessarily doubled. You get the increase in base damage and then the increase, and then the AoE. You get the base damage from the direct hit and then the AoE damage. Keep in mind that mods don't typically increase AoE damage, only base damage, so they won't scale entirely. But yeah, it does more. It does more shield damage than hull damage and slows down any ship that it hits. Next up, we have the Ion Pulse Railgun. The Ion Pulse Railgun is sort of like the boron equivalent of a mass striper, but not quite there. You can fire this thing about 4 times or so until it overheats, and there is a little bit of a delay, like maybe 5 seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds, a delay between each shot. And it has a range of, I think, 4,000 meters. So it is definitely a weapon that is kind of specialized for ranged combat. So okay, that's the mediums. This is that was the smalls. These are the mediums. So yeah, you can fire this thing 5 shots until it overheats. It has a range of 8,800. So this is still stuck within range of stations, but it is far enough away to where the ships would potentially be able to escape from oncoming fire before being destroyed. But you'd still want to use capitals to kill stations, unless you're playing the split. At which point you kind of just have to do what you got to do. So this is their equivalent of a sniper rifle. As you can see, the shots move at a speed of 8,000 meters per second, so it will hit in about a second, a little over a second. It'll hit in 101 milliseconds, I think. From, I mean, 1,000 and 1,100 milliseconds, 1,100 milliseconds, or 1.1 seconds, I guess. If shooting at a ship that is at maximum, like actual literal maximum range. So, really good weapon. It still does more shield damage than it does hull damage. It doesn't have any special effects or anything like that. It just is good against shields, and it does, decent hull damage. After that, we have the Boron Phase Cannon. Not gun, cannon. So the Boron Phase Cannon, the medium weapon, the medium variant of the phase gun, is the... well, it does exactly what the phase gun does. It does a lot of hull damage, but barely any shield damage by comparison. Now, if you're using the Boron Ion if you're using the Ion Atomizer, you will want to offset that with a phase cannon. So if you're using a Hydra, you would have 2 Ion Atomizers and 2 phase cannons, because the Ion Atomizers would strip enemy shields, and the phase cannons would strip their hulls and destroy the enemy ship. So just keep that in mind. There is another aspect here that's kind of important, and that is that typically ships have twice as much hull, or around twice as much hull as they do shields. The main thing about that is shields are slowly recharging. Hull is technically, because of service crews, recharging very, very slowly by comparison. But large shields are always just recharging. They have to get to a certain threshold before the shield pops back on, but they are constant mitigation. So what that kind of means is that if you have the ability to strip the shields, you may want to go with more phase cannons than Ion Atomizers. Even though that means that it will take them longer to strip shields, there is, again, around half as much shields as there is hull. Capitals tend to have half as much shields as they do hull. This kind of applies for most ships. A lot of heavy fighters get parity where it's around 1-to-1. Some medium ships get to where it's around 1-to-1, so it really just depends. But if you're specifically using the phase cannon to kill mediums, then you might do half and half Ion Atomizers, half phase cannons. If you're using it against capitals, you'll probably go with 1 Ion Atomizer and 3 phase cannons, just so when you do get through the shields, taking on the hull is much quicker. That said, you do have more optimal options when it comes to taking down capitals than using infinite ammo weapons like this. Specifically, something like missiles, torpedoes, they can do a lot of damage. Alright everyone, that is all the Boron medium weapons, and that's about all there is to say. Give me a like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what was useful to you, what you liked, what you disliked, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone.